I like Donald Trump. You know, there are a lot of folks in Washington right now that seem to be crawling all over themselves just to smack Donald Trump. I'm not one of them. I think he's bold. I think he's brash. And I think he's got backbone.
Welcome back to Hardball. That was, of course, Ted Cruz on Hardball last week. And as we showed you last night, Trump has catapulted to the top of the Republican presidential field by railing against Mexicans, blasting immigrants there as criminals. Now it appears Cruz is auditioning to be Trump's apprentice. Trump says Cruz called him wanting to arrange a meeting today, and the Washington Post outed the location, Trump Tower, up in New York, for that meeting. Why is Cruz meeting with Trump? Well, earlier today, Cruz answered that question.
I'll say this, I think Donald Trump is bringing a bold, brash voice to this presidential race. Indeed, many of the politicians who are running out of their way to smack Donald Trump have for years or even decades been vocal advocates of amnesty. I, for one, am grateful that Donald Trump is highlighting these issues. They are critical issues. They're issues I've been fighting for a lot of years. In 2013 alone, the Obama administration released 36,000 illegal aliens who had criminal convictions, including 116 murderers. One question anyone should ask President Obama, or especially Hillary Clinton: does Hillary Clinton think it is appropriate for the federal government to release 116 murderers who are illegal aliens? I don't. Does Hillary Clinton think it's appropriate that in 2013, the Obama administration released over 15,000 illegal aliens who had drunk driving convictions? You know, my girls are 7 and 4. They're driving on the road every day to school. The idea that this administration is releasing over 15,000 people with drunk driving convictions who are here illegally, that doesn't make any sense. People are fed up with it. And I think that frustration with politicians in both parties who say one thing and do another, I think that's going to be front and center in the 2016 election.
Well, Matt Schlapp is the head of the American Conservative Union and was President Bush's political director, and Willie Brown was the Democratic mayor of San Francisco. Let me start with Matt Schlapp. It seems like it's a combination of anti-illegal immigrant and Willie Horton here. What do you make of this focus on crime now rather than immigration itself, or illegal immigration even? Your thoughts?
Look, the fact is Donald Trump is doing well in these polls because he's striking a chord, and he's not striking just a Republican chord. He's striking a chord with people out there in the country who say, when you have a border that you're not policing, when you have a visa system that's really out of control, we don't know who's staying in this country, you know, you don't always get the best people inside your country. And the fact is crime is a part of this, and we ought to cut down on it. We ought to cut down on crime. We ought to crack down on crime. And anybody who's going to defend the criminals in these situations is just beyond me.
When is the Republican Party going to take steps to do that? You've had the presidency for 8 years under W. You've had power in Congress. No. When are you going to do something about arranging a uniform, fair, progressive immigration system and hiring system in this country you intend to enforce? Everyone knows the reason people come here is to get a job, not to commit a crime. If somebody comes here to get a job, shouldn't they have to do it legally? And why does your party oppose true enforcement of that law?
Well, I think George W. Bush tried very hard to get a comprehensive immigration bill through Congress. And there's no question that one of the reasons that this has totally broken down in this Congress is because President Obama acted unilaterally with his executive pen, which does not acknowledge the fact that this is a big problem for the country. He did that after he failed to get the get the timing right here, Matt. If you can't get the House of Representatives to agree to a comprehensive deal, which had been passed in the Senate with pretty strong Republican support, by the way, how can you blame the president for moving on his own if he couldn't get something done legislatively? Because just like Ronald Reagan in 1986, who signed an immigration bill, you have to acknowledge that, you know, sometimes you don't control Congress, and you have to work with those
Congress
Republicans.
Passed a good bill. Congress passed a very good bill back in 1986, and they never enforced it because of people that said we have to have illegal hiring in California and other places for the economy. They basically said for economic reasons we couldn't stop illegal hiring. Okay,
look, you worked on the Hill. The president doesn't get to dictate what's in a comprehensive bill. He has to work with the people. The American people has sent to Congress to get it.
You're saying it's all the Democrats' fault. Just tell me
that. No, I'm not. No, I'm definitely not saying that.
All right.
But
let me go to Willie Brown.
Obama bears a lot of the blame for the fact that we can't get a bipartisan solution.
Okay, Willie Brown, thank you, sir. Look at this. Trump brand has taken a U-turn among Republican voters in the wake of his tough comments about immigrants. but not in the way you might think. These are new numbers, by the way, from the Washington Post ABC poll just out today. In May, before his talk about illegal immigrants and crime, Trump was viewed favorably by just 23% of Republicans, unfavorably by 2/3, 65%. Now those numbers have flipped. He's viewed favorably by 57% of Republicans, unfavorably by 40. Mr. Brown, Mayor Brown, why do you think Republicans like the sound of this guy now?
Well, I think that he's offering simplistic solutions and responses in view of a violent act that was done right here in San Francisco. He's taken full advantage of that opportunity, and he is in fact ignoring, and so are they, all of the other things that need to be considered when you react to such a violent act.
Late today, CNBC's John Harwood asked Ted Cruz about his motives for supporting Trump all of a sudden. Let's watch.
Do you see him as a plausible occupant of the Oval Office, plausible President of the United States, or are you simply defending him because you expect him to collapse and you want to inherit his votes?
Well, let's be clear. I'm running to win, so I expect everyone to collapse. I'd like to inherit all their votes. So at the end of the day, I will readily plead guilty to that.
Okay.
But I'll also say I like Donald. He's bold. He's brash. Part of the reasons people are supporting Donald Trump right now is they're fed up with politicians in Washington who don't tell you the truth. They don't do what they said they would do. And a lot of his support reflects that right now. I appreciate that brashness.
As the head of the American Conservative Union, Matt, do you see him as a plausible president? Because you notice then Ted never answered that question that John Harwood put to him. Do you have an answer?
You know, I like a lot of Americans, are watching him. We're trying to figure out what this guy's all about. He's phenomenal media presence. He understands the media.
Yeah,
is he somebody who can operate inside the Oval Office and lead the country? That's what this process is about. We're going to find out.
So you think he's plausible, in other words, to answer John Harwood's question?
Definitely.
He's a plausible president of the United States, Donald Trump.
Definitely.
Mayor Brown?
No, of course not. As a matter of fact, I think Mrs. Clinton is just hoping the Republican Party continues with its insanity towards Donald Trump and nominate Donald Trump. That will almost ensure we'll have the first woman president in the history of this country.
Well, what about Bernie Sanders? Is he plausible?
He is. He is. He has the talent. He's been elected to the U.S. Senate. Trump has been elected to nothing.
So you have to get elected in order to qualify to be president. I wish they had put that in the Constitution, but they didn't. And being an outsider at this particular time in American politics sure seems to be an advantage.
Well, I disagree with you wholeheartedly, unless, of course, you show extraordinary talent, skilled humanity, and common sense. Trump provides none of those things.
That's the American debate. Thank you so much, Matt Schlapp. Thank you, Mayor.